Good morning, everybody. My name is Samantha Mirabal. I'm with Melco's application team. Let me quick check. For some reason, it looks like we're live on YouTube, but I do not see it on Facebook yet, so I don't know why Facebook is not cooperating. But we're live on YouTube, so hi, YouTube. So, I don't know. I don't see it. It says sending. Well, I am not sure why it's not going. I guess I could try toggling this button. All right, we'll see if that goes on Facebook now. Sorry, technical difficulties with Facebook, although YouTube seems to be sending. All right. Well, if I can't make it work, then it's just on YouTube. Check one more time. I don't know. Sorry. Okay. Well, anyway, I guess rather than me staring at something I don't understand, I will go ahead and get started. All right, sorry about that. All right, again, my name is Samantha. I'm with Melco's application team, and we do these DesignShop Talks on a weekly basis to see what questions you might have. So if while we're live, you can type them in on the in the comments, and if you see me looking off to the side, that's where I have the different platforms up. Although right now it's just YouTube because all it says for Facebook is sending data. So I don't know. All right, so type in your comments and we'll see what questions we can answer. All right, so let's see, where can we start? So one question we got was, how do you arc lettering under a design? I can do it on the top, but I can't figure out how to do it on the bottom. So let's see. Let's do a new file, and we're gonna do some lettering. All right, so we have some lettering, and now when you want to do an arc, you can come up in your property view right here, your property bar, and you can set it to arc. The other way you can do that is if you double click on it, right here under line type, you have arc. All right, so that does your eyebrow type look. Well, if you want it to do a smiley face, what do we do here? Well, you can rotate it twice, okay, by using one of these buttons down here. Okay, so that'll flip it. Or you can also do the same thing by doing a horizontal and a vertical mirror. Both of those give you the same result. All right, so it turns it into the smile, but you notice it's reading upside down. Most of the time we don't want that. So how do we change that? Well, again, you go into the properties by double clicking on that element. And then right here, you'll see there's a clockwise and a counterclockwise. So if I set that to counterclockwise and hit apply, there it goes. Now, I flipped it over using these buttons, but notice here there's also an angle. So you can also change the angle right here, and that will do the same thing of flipping it one way or the other. Okay, so that is how you do your arc on the bottom. All right, so the next question we had was, how do we add curls to the fonts? Okay, so there's two ways we can do it. One is by doing a single time edit. So if all you're doing is trying to add one, flair to one thing or change what's already on the font, you would do that one way. If you're trying to change it permanently, you would do it another. So let me show you how we do our one-time change. So let's say I'm gonna make that straight, and I don't know, let's say this A I want to modify. All right, so I selected. All right, what did I just do? I did that really fast. So I select the font or the lettering, and you see these little black X's. If you click on that, it'll let you select one letter. All right, you can see it's got a box around that letter. Now I can move it around. I can, if I click on it again, I can rotate it, so I can make modifications to that one item. All right, well, that includes my wireframes. If I right click on it, go to wireframe editing, now I can go down here and let's say move that. Let me add a point here and maybe here, move this guy over here. You know, so I can add items to my font and change the wireframe. Okay, so that changes it just for this one letter. Now let's say you did that and you go, I hate it, I want it gone. That's cool. Right click, restore letter. Okay, so then you can go do it again, right? So let's say I wanted it curvy instead. I could right click, wireframe editing. I can go move these guys again. Let's add some points. Left click, move this guy around. Maybe I add a right click there to make it a curve, a right click to make it a curve. So maybe I want that. Okay, so you can modify any of these wireframes that you want. So if I right click on that one, wireframe editing all versus wireframe editing, it just gives you all the different points that were used to create it versus just the top stitching here. So that's really the only difference, and all we're trying to affect is the top stitching, so wireframe editing would be fine. And again, I can, you know, just modify it however it is for whatever look you're trying to get. Okay, so you can change your wireframe to your heart's content down there. Okay, so that changes it for this particular thing, but it's not overwriting the font. So next time I type an A, so if I come in here and do another A, it's going to be the original one and not the one I modified, right? So I can save that letter, but keep in mind that will overwrite this font. Okay, so if you're going to do stuff like that, I would suggest copying the font, and that way you're not overwriting the original. So if you copy it, paste it in the OFA folders. So where is that? If I go to C drive, program files, Melco, DesignShop, nope, wrong one. Program files x86, Melco, DesignShop, alphabets. This is the basic block. So I can copy that, paste it as a new name. And now when I go to change it, do I have, well here, copy paste. Now it's called copy. I'm going to change this to test. I like making things test. I'm not sure if it will let me change it to this without restarting. Let's see. Yeah. Oh, it actually did. There you go. So now that's the new font test, right? So now if I modify this, I can then go and save it, and it will save those letters. The other way you can always do this, if you want to change the entire alphabet, you can go to the alphabet editor, and we do have some videos that we can get you links for on the alphabet editor itself. But here you can come over and select test, the one I just created, and then for each character you want to modify, you can come in here and change it. So you would select your letter, so let's say it was the lowercase a, and then I can come over here and change the digitizing for it. Okay, so that's how you would do that. All right, let's see, what other questions do we have? So we have a question that was typed in on YouTube. Is it worth upgrading from DesignShop 10 to Pro or V11? Yeah. So I love the new I went from 9 to 10 to 11, so I've used all of them. And if you're going from basic to pro, or DesignShop V10 basic to 11 pro, that's a massive upgrade. You get all kinds of fun stuff. Like they said, the design checker is cool. You can also use the primer stitch and the basting stitch are fantastic. The decorative stitches are amazing. It's got so many fun features on there. The small lettering compensation, goodness, the corners, which you have corners if you have Pro on V10, but it's just so versatile and it's fun. I love it. So yes, I highly recommend it. So let's see. We got you a link to the DesignShop features. All right, so we talked about that. Okay, can the EMT 16X sew into a hat bill? Do I need an extra strong needle? So can you and should you are different questions, right? So can, yes. You can clamp it, however you can hoop it and sew through it. It's cardboard. So, I mean, I've done car mats, which are really pretty ridiculous as well to sew in. So yes, you can do that. You would just use a sharp needle, I would assume, to go through. Now keep in mind when you do that, on the bottom, you're going to see all the stitching. So it's not ideal. Most of the time when you see embroidery on the bill of a hat, it's done pre-construction. What does that mean? They embroider the fabric and then they make the hat. Okay? Or that's the main way it's done. The other is they make patches and then glue them on using like a E6000 or something like a really aggressive adhesive, and it's glued onto the hat. So I would highly recommend doing that. Either of those, either making it pre-construction. And by the way, it's pretty fun. I made a hat just because I wanted to. But there's lots of fun tutorials on YouTube on how to make hats if you want to make them from scratch, but way more time than it's worth. But anyway, I would do it as a patch. So design whatever patch you want and then just glue it on, and it will give you a cleaner look, or you can always do it pre-construction. Okay. Can you add a border around a design? Yeah. So let's do that. So you want a horse. Do I have a horse? I have a decorative horse, so let me go grab that. Decorative horse. Did I not put my horsey over here? Aw, I didn't move it over yet. Boo. Let me go get it. Sorry, I installed new versions, so my decoratives don't come over. Where are my decoratives? Styles, embroidery. Nope. Decorative. Horse. There's my horse. There. All right. Well, it's a weird shape anyway. So let me delete some of these extra points. So what am I doing right now? I wanted to select a bunch of points at once without having to click on one at a time. So if you click your shape, click on this thing right here, custom point selection, then you can just left click and draw a circle around what it is I want to delete. So I select those, hit delete. Now I've got a horsey. Anyway, so now we have a shape. So let's make this bigger. All right, so now I have a big horse. All right, so how do I create that outline around it? So I can come up here, go to Object, Generate Basting Primer, change it to a primer stitch, and you can use whatever offset you want. So I just use the default. Now, do you want it to sew like this? Probably not. What you're describing to me sounds more like a patch. So what do we do with this? Well, this gave me my shape. So now I'm just going to delete one because I don't need two to do this. And then I'm going to take this guy here and use my change element, which is right here. Change element from one type to another, and let's make it a single line and replace. All right, so now I've got a shape around there. Okay, so that's with a 50-point outline, and then you can always mess with it with whatever width you like and things like that. So you can play with it and modify it, but that will allow you to do whatever you want shape-wise around something. Good morning, Georgia in Colorado. Welcome. Thank you for joining. So there, that is a really fast way. You can use it for a primer stitch. I use it like this all the time to create, outlines around shapes. I use the primer and then just convert that fill over into whatever it is I want. If you don't want it to be let's say you're doing this as you want a piece of fabric laid down instead of this outline. Well, instead of converting to a single line, you can convert it to this walk input. So I'll show you another trick. If you select the element that I want to convert, which is currently a single line, I hold my control key down and click on the walk input. That converts it from a single line to whatever I clicked on. So again, if I want to make it go back to the single line, I can hold my control key, click on single line, and it puts it back. Okay. All right, so that gave me an outline. What else do we have? When buying digitized designs that only offer DST or EXP, which choice is better? I use both. EXP is probably my preferred choice because it has trims explicitly stated in the file, whereas DST has jump stitches that have to be converted over to trims. So I would say EXP would be the better choice, but honestly, both are fine. But EXP, because there's trims built into the file. Both of them are expanded formats, so they both are pretty minimal of the type of data they have. They don't have color information, but you have all the stitches, and with EXPs, you also have trims programmed in. All right, so if DesignShop is on one computer and the machine runs on another computer, all right, so you have DesignShop over here and you have OS over here. So OS is your operating system for the machine. DesignShop is where you do all your digitizing. Okay, two different computers. And you want to make changes on the computer that has the machine. What options do you have? So the OS doesn't really make any changes. Now there's some filters that you can apply, but it's not design changes. But what I could suggest is, let's say you want to be able to resize something on that computer. You can always get DesignShop Sizer. It's a free resource. I think you can just go on to Melco's page. I found it this morning and then I didn't copy the link. But anyway, so you can fill out the info, get the sizer, and that'll let you resize it so you can scale designs. It's a basic editor, right? So you can design, rotate, you can use the transform, you can mirror design. So let's say instead of having a bird face one way, you want to flip it the other way. So you can mirror using those buttons at the bottom. So you can't do density or things like that, but you can add, so take a design and import another one on top of it. So using insert. So yeah, right there we got you the link to request DesignShop Sizer. Okay, so you could put that on there. And then you do your main digitizing on one machine, and then you can play, do some basic stuff on the other where the OS is. Any tips on aligning items after taking it out of the fast clamps? Well, one, if you're mid sew out, so here, you had to take the bag off to rethread the bobbin case. All right, so I had a friend of mine, she's a tech as well. I was whining for the same reason that I ended up losing a massive sew out, because I had to take something at the time. They didn't have the fast clamps. It was a Hoop Tech clamp. But anyway, I had something in a clamp and I was all frustrated that I got all the way almost done and I had to take the whole item off and I couldn't ever get it lined up right again. And I had to redo it. And she's like, "Why'd you do that?" I'm like, "Because I need to get to the bobbin." She's like, "Why didn't you just take the clamp off?" And it was one of those moments for me anyway. So rather than unclamping it from the fast clamp, take the entire clamp off the machine, do whatever you're going to do, and then put the clamp back, leaving the item still hooped. That's going to be your best opportunity to not lose your item. Okay, because once you unhoop stuff, unless you have alignment points that you can use, it becomes difficult to get everything lined back up. So you can always, I know I've done in the past, maybe 2 weeks ago, I don't know, recently, I did a lot of discussion on how you can do laser alignment to, pick different points and whatnot. Sometimes you can use that technique to recover things, but in general, particularly if it's got your clamps, just take the clamp off the machine. So that means rather than opening the jaws, use the thumb screws, take them off, set it aside, do whatever you're going to do with the bobbin, take the clamp, put it back. And then that's going to be your best chance of saving the project. Let's see. The other question you had, what is the difference between the bobbin cases with a pigtail or spring and the ones that don't have a spring or pigtail? All right, so I assume you're talking about the spring that's inside the bobbin case. That's a anti-backlash spring. Those are used to stop. It puts pressure against the bobbin. So if the bobbin gets pulled, it doesn't sit there and spin uncontrollably in there, leaving a pile of thread. Okay, so that's backlash. It's helping stop that spin. Generally, you see that used more on if you're using metal bobbins, for instance. So if you're going to use metal bobbins, they're heavier, so having that becomes more important. You cannot use that spring inside the case, that anti-backlash, if you're going to use the magnetic bobbins. Honestly, I pop the spring out of every bobbin case I get. Yeah, mainly because in my shop, I use magnetic plus other ones. So I use magnetic and paper sided and plastic sided bobbins, you know, pretty much whatever I could find. And so having the spring in there becomes problematic. So I don't use them at all. Now the pigtail up top, all right, so that you've got the bobbin case and it's got a pigtail sticking out the top that you wind the thread through. That's setting up the thread to present it to the hook and to the sewing in the proper position. So that's just what you have to use on our machine, on embroidery machines, right? Because it keeps that thread up, so when it comes around, it can pick it up. When the top thread goes around the hook, it can grab the thread. It's presented right. It's not flopped off weird in a strange angle that can't be caught. Okay, so that's the bobbin cases. You can buy either the ones with the lashback spring or without it. Like I said, I pull them out and shove them in a drawer and only use them when I'm using metal bobbin cases. All right, which honestly I rarely do. Gosh, I can't remember the last time I did that. So it's been that long. All right, so we have a question on YouTube. It says, I'm having trouble bringing designs into DS11 to start digitizing. Can you recommend any training videos or training material? Absolutely. So if you go to Melco University, let's see, melcouniversity.com. Where'd it go? Oh, helps if I type correctly, huh? There we go. All right. So if you go here, there's this media tab. All right. So if you go to melcouniversity.com, click on media, and right here are playlists. I would start here, start at the top, and work your way down. Okay. Now, it's a little counterintuitive to some degree. All of these first videos are really about editing designs and learning how to edit and understanding properties and things like that. And then you get into digitizing down here. It's really important to understand these first because it all plays a role in digitizing. So I would highly recommend starting at the top and working your way down through these videos. They're put together really well. They kind of walk you through all the basics. So you can kind of get understand what the different properties are. And the basics, so that when you get down to digitizing, you know, it talks about how to bring in art, all the different types of digitizing methods, and you get to work through it. So we did get you a link to getting started. So yeah, that's where I would start. You also said, what version do I need to scan directly to DS? I'm not sure I understand that question. So, yeah, I don't understand the question. I'm sorry, Georgia. Are you talking about you want to take a picture, scan it, and bring it into DS? Or, I don't know. If you're talking about bringing in pictures, you need at least DesignShop standard, where you can bring art in. I like Pro, because you can do everything. So if it can do it, you can do it. If the software has it, you can do it if you have Pro. If that's not the question, let me know. I'm not sure I follow. Okay. All right. Okay, I have an OFM file that sews perfectly on squared flats, but it sews wider at the bottom than the top when you run hats. Is there any way to adjust the file as a whole to flare out at the top like a slight V shape? Yeah. So let's look at it. So we're going to pretend this is our design. All right. So, well, okay. So if I've got a design here, oops, let's not lock it. Let me delete my horse so this actually works right. All right, so up here, you'll have object. It helps if you select it. So I'm going to select the entire design, go object, transform, outline. All right, so transform, it's going to everything that's selected, it's going to mess with it. So you can actually take this outline and move it. Now this is way too much, but it will adjust the entire design and scale it out. Okay, and you can do that with any. So let's say I go open up my one-day design, select the whole thing, object, transform, outline, and I'm just showing you this so you can see that what it's doing. you can actually move it and it will scale it accordingly. So yes, you can absolutely use that transform. Now the other thing that's fun about this is, not that you want to do this, but I like it just as a, ooh, look what it can do. I can do all kinds of silly stuff with this. All right. Do I want to sew it like this? No, but you get the idea. So let's say you're trying to do like a, I don't know. There's all kinds of reasons you would use that, but I mainly use it when I'm trying to fit designs. Like let's say I've got a rocker patch or something like that to make a design fit in a particular shape. I'll use the transform outline and force the issue. Okay. Yeah, so that's how I would fix this. Now, the other question you have is related to OS. I don't have OS on this computer, so in auto compensate. So for those who aren't aware, if you go to tools in the operating system, so Melco OS, if you go to tools settings, and there's another tab there that has settings, down at the bottom there's something that says auto compensate. Okay, so what is that? You can turn it on and off. If you turn it off, there's some tables that you can go play in. And what those are all doing is kind of similar to what you can do in DesignShop, but it's on a one-time thing rather than... So what you do in DesignShop is going to change this file. So every time you sew it, whatever change you have on there is going to be applied. All right. So pull compensation is, embroidery shrinks as it's sewing, right? So it's going to narrow up, the columns are going to narrow up a little bit. So you compensate for this by saying, okay, I know it's going to shrink. So rather than sewing it here, which means it's going to be like that, let's make it a little wider. So when it shrinks, it's where I want it to be. Okay, that's kind of what it's doing. So if I go into the properties under compensation, you'll see you have pull comp by percent or by offset. So one's multiplication based. So let's say I put 120 on this. Notice, does that look like a triangle anymore? No, it looks kind of bizarre, right? I have a triangle drawn, but now I have a pyramid. That's weird. Why? And that's because it's multiplication based, right? So it's doing 120%, so it's offsetting. So it's going past my outline, 20%, but it's looking at the distance of my stitching. So up here, right, when I'm sewing from one side of my wireframe to the other along my stitch direction, that's short. That's a small number. So 20% of that is still a small number. By the time you get down here, I'm going from one side of the element all the way over here. 20% is a bigger number. So it's going to overstitch more here than it does over here. All right, so you add distortions when you're using percent based. I'll say I don't ever, very, very, very rarely do I ever use percent. I leave that at 100%. And I use offset. So offset, you're telling it how much to overstitch by. So I'm going to do this, don't use 10. I'm doing this just to show you. All right, it's overstitching the same distance all the way around the shape. So it's just making it bolder. Right? So you're not getting that distortion that you can get with the math. So in OS, so DesignShop, it's setting this file up. So every time you sew it, whatever you program in there is going to apply, right? Now, if you use auto compensate in DesignShop, and let's say you do these same numbers. So you turn off auto and you go in and say, I want 10 points of offset in X and Y. Okay. Well, it's going to add that offset to columns in X and Y, but it's one time. So when you load the file, it'll make the changes to the file. You'll sew it out. If you go and open it in DesignShop, those changes aren't going to be there. All right. If you open it in OS with that on, it'll be there. So I personally find it better to just do it in DesignShop. That way you don't have to remember to keep turning that on or off within OS every time you want to change something. Okay. So that's what your auto compensate or in that feature is doing in DesignShop or in OS. So those were the questions that were typed in. So, and I don't see any others on YouTube. I don't know why Facebook isn't cooperating. I told it to stream and it keeps on saying sending data to Facebook. So I don't know. I'll have to check with the powers that be. All right. Any other questions you guys have? I'll sit here for a little bit just in case anyone wants to type something in. Cool. What else? Any other fun things? You guys got any fun plans for the weekend? I know I have one kid out of town with the grandparents. My other two are here. Hopefully we'll find something to do. I gotta go play with the machine later this afternoon. I'm getting a new machine for in the corner, so that'll be exciting. Getting a big machine for this room, so that'll be hanging out in the corner off to this side in future videos, so that'll be fun. All right. Well, you guys have a fantastic weekend, and I will be back next week. Can't see why not. Yeah, so I'll do this again next week, see what questions you guys have. And oh, my new machine is going to be a print and cut. I got the new SG3 5400 Roland print and cut. It's being delivered today. It was supposed to be delivered Monday and then Wednesday and then yesterday, and it's actually out for delivery today, so I'm excited. Although they won't actually come and put it together and teach me how to use it till Tuesday, but that's okay. It's still it's closer to being here. New toys are always fun. Yeah, I'm so excited. Yeah, all my boxes back there are the random materials I keep buying in prep of having a new machine. Well, all right. Well, you guys have a great weekend. I will, again, talk to you guys next week. If you have questions, feel free and type them in. I usually poll a day or two before on Facebook, asking for, what questions people have. So type in there and we'll see what we can do for y'all. I hope these are helpful, and I will be back next week. Bye, y'all. Have fun sewing.